Well, it is the morning. Again, it's getting close to New Year. Didn't feel super cold. But anyways, besides my ramble about Arizona's weird weather sometimes. Um, I was looking into obviously more cars because I have a C5. As you guys have always clearly seen in these videos. Um, but and I thought that maybe if I would have bought the C5 when I did, I thought maybe that would have stopped me from looking at other cars. It did not. It kind of amplified my tendency to look at more cars now. Now I look at more stuff. Now, is it always the same cars? No. Right? Now I look for, depending on my mood, I'll either sometimes look for another sporty car or muscle car, whichever one. I don't really, something within this range. Say C6, maybe. C7, maybe. I even look at some expensive cars, even though I know for sure, I say, like, it would take a long time for me to even be able to afford it, right? Like, sometimes I look at, like, CH or Porsches just to see, like, where their price is at this point. Like a CH, I just get curious around me just to see where their price is. Like, is there, like, a major price drop from the last time I looked, something like that? But I think a budget fast car for you really depends on budget for you, right? Like, some people always want 1, 2, or 3 different engines. Like, I'll go like this, right? For 4 cylinders, I think my favorite 4-cylinder is the Evo X from 08 to 2014. I love that car. And I get it has the 2 transmissions, which has the little 5-speed manual or a 6-speed dual clutch, which the dual clutches on those cars, they are kind of, I guess, questionable at times, right? They have their moments. You can try and fix them, right? Initially, like, it's not going to be crazy out the gate. Right? You're going to have to try to really focus. It's kind of like this car. You got to kind of focus in on making sure that DCT stays cool. Manual trans, obviously, you don't really have to worry about that much. So it is what it is in that car. I've only looked at 1 5-cylinder, which obviously I don't think anyone ever talks about, and it's the Audis. For me, I've seen, like, the Volvo's 5-cylinder engines and whatnot. I'm like, that's cool, but I like the Audi ones. Like, off the TTRS, that one is cool. That one's nice. They're expensive. Like, I mean, I get it, it's an Audi, but damn, dude, I'm like, they're like $80,000, $90,000, maybe more. Like, maybe a low one might be like 60. For V6s or inline 6s, if it's like a sporty car, I tend to look towards obviously the 370Zs, right? The 370Z, I feel like that's just more of a no-brainer on that one. 370Zs, and I like them, right? I know people always, some people like the way they sound, some people don't. Some people think that they sound like, they're like trumpets and stuff. I'm like, dude, if you put the right exhaust on it, I think it actually sounds quite nice. And they're relatively quick. And they're relatively quick cars, right? They've got the power down to have fun. I'm like, you don't have to have crazy amounts of power to have fun. Fun obviously will depend on you. Some people, like, if they have all these crazy cars that happen in your car, then they might not think it's that fast. But if this is your first time owning a sports car of any sort, it's going to feel fast to you, especially if you try to compare it to either if you've never had a car or if you try to compare it to the first car you had, right? Like me, my first car was a Nissan Sentra. right? And I love that car. That car was cool. Car, like, and it had this whole CVT thing and whatnot. I get that, right? And yes, I'm also not a fan of CVTs, but that's what I had, right? That's just the opportunity that was given to me at the time I started driving, and I took it. Like, at that point, you're just gonna have to learn on what you have, regardless if you think that car is a piece of work. You're just gonna have to use it and learn it just to get the basics down. You don't need to learn on a 400 horsepower car. I'm like, that car was fine for me, right? You say that car did me pretty good. It's still fine. Like, my sister has it now. I gave it to her, so like that's gonna be her car until she gets sorted out with a different car. But that's just what she's gonna have for now because it was cheaper, right? The car had, when I gave it to her, the car had like, I don't know, like maybe 80,000 miles or so. It wasn't crazy. Like, it's fine. So that car is like, we've always done the general maintenance on that car, so it's nice. Anyways, V6s, 370Zs, I think are nice. If you want to go for the Infinities, go ahead. The only one that's impressed me with the V6s actually is Kia's V6s, right? Like, even off the Stinger is nice. That's a fun little car. I say little, that's a big car, but right, you got a twin turbo V6 off of a sedan. I'm like, that's awesome. Right, that's puts speed and practicality in the same sense. It's great. What else? What else? Kia's the Genesis, the Hyundai Genesis. That little two-door coupe specifically, I'm like, that thing, if you didn't already know, like, there's two engines off that car. There's a little 4-cylinder turbo engine, and then there's a 3.8 liter V6 for that car. That V6 was impressive, right? Like, and I think like that can be pretty comparable to the Nissan V6s off the 370s. At least maybe off the Nismo version. But for being naturally aspirated, that thing made great power. Like, most cars, like, when you look at their displacement and then you look at the power, there's a gap where there is room to make some power. I don't know how much room those things can handle from a naturally aspirated standpoint, but even then, from factory, I'm like, that thing is actually impressive. Like, Kia had, off that 3.8 liter V6, NA, by the way, NA made more power than that little turbo engine could do. 348 horsepower. 348. That is basically the LS1 that's mine. That's literally my engine, right? Obviously, the big difference is mine's just a 5.7 instead of a 3.8. But I'm like, the fact that that thing has that much power staying NA, I feel like at that time, I'm like, most cars, if you don't have large displacements, they just slap on a turbo on it just to keep up with the displacements of the Americans, right? That just seemed to be a tendency for a lot of brands, or they just wouldn't try at all. That little car is interesting from just a power perspective, reliability, all this stuff. You can go ahead and do your research with whichever one you like. Right, some of them are obviously more reliable than others, but I'm just talking about just from as a viewer and looking at these cars. Some of these cars are impressive with how much they made with what they had. V8s, obviously, you've got American or whatever. There's options. I'm pretty sure anyone who looks at cars, especially if you look at it like a lot, you're gonna look at whatever V8 you like. Like, the only other V6s I think I've ever looked at is Infinity's, the twin turbo 3 liters. Like, that's actually nice, right? I like those cars. And if you don't already know, they are water cooled. Those 3.0Ts, they are water cooled engines. like instead of air to air or air to water cooled. I think specifically on the turbos to kind of really cool down the turbos, which is nice, right? You don't want your turbo getting so hot. Like you want it to be able to maintain power consistently without trying to destroy itself, and that's the one way to do it. Expensive, yes. Phenomenal setup, hell yeah. Now, I'm not gonna say those cars are like the gods, right? Like from the get, no, right? 400 horsepower or 300, whichever one. If you get the Red Sport models, 400 horsepower. I think the one thing that was nice about those engines is that they are tunable, right? Like it's very like the Infinity's 3 liters. They are quite tunable engines. I would say they can be, to me, they can almost be compared to a ATS-V Cadillac. Like in terms of that more unknown car that this brand makes. Like no one, like if you think of a car that can like, you know, get moving, you would never think of a Red Sport. But I'm like, same thing with anything. If you get the tune right, you will go fast. And those things have made off of tunes 500-600 horsepower. I'm like, that is insane right there. Like they already have the setup to maintain that, so that's great, right? They already have the whole cooling and everything to maintain that. So I'm like, that is already, that's a thing that you don't have to worry about. So, and they have 7-speed automatic, so I'm like, there you go, right? It's at least something to help this thing out. It's not like a atrocious transmission like a CVT. V8s, hard to move to that. Obviously, I think the American V8s are probably your cheapest options. I think maybe, yeah. I would say like you can look at the German ones too. I mean, shoot, you can look at any of them, right? You can go to Lexus and grab their 5 liters. Those V8s sound amazing, right? You could probably go to, well, Nissan, right? If you can find, besides the trucks, right? There's only a handful of cars that ever received like a form of V8, whether it's the 4.5 liters all the way up to the 5.6. Like you had some SUVs besides the Armadas that had it. Like there was one 5-liter that they made for a short period, so I was like, okay, I can't really. I think it's like the FX50 or something, or FQ50. And they made that like really short, which I've only ever seen one in person. That thing sounds nice, right? And it's not a super big SUV. It's like a mid-size thing. To me, sometimes I thought it looked like a Juke. I'm like, this feels like a Nissan, like a slightly bigger Nissan Juke with a V8. This is some crazy work. Sedans, they do have the M56, right? M56 is, I would say that's more of a maybe luxury than it is an actual sleeper. But hey, I think some luxurious cars can be sleepers. ATS-V, for example. But M56 was made, even the certain Q70s, right? Certain Infinity Q70s, certain one of them, they had some V8s until a certain time period where they started switching to the twin turbo V6s. But and that's another one right there, right? For Mercedes, M113, anything with those 5 to 5.4 liters, those should usually probably be your best options. I guess for a more affordable-ish. I'm not gonna say a Mercedes is an affordable vehicle to maintain, right? Like, parts are still quite expensive for those cars. That has never changed, even for those cars. I don't see that changing much. I'm like, they're just the quality of parts that they use, and they're just expensive. BMWs, that one. I'm trying to think what would be a good one. I mean, obviously there's like the S65 or something, like the 4-liter V8s. I think. Like, I think those ones could be good. Audi is the only one from Audi. From, if you want to go purely, if you don't like turbo V8s, obviously you don't want to go NA. Those 4.2 liter V8s. Obviously, the only thing with the V8s from Audi that I think if anyone's ever looked into those, the only thing that sucks is the tensioners go down, because the timing chains are in the back of the engine, like on the firewall. So you have to take the engine out. You cannot just. It's not like some other, like most cars, where you could still do a chain with the engine still being in the car. Not that one. I'm like, damn. Certain versions had a timing belt. You can look at those. Those are a little bit easier. But I'm not a fan. I'm not the biggest fan of timing belts. Just me. Yeah. But hey, it is what it is. But I'll say some certain cars that can be sleeper-ish, right? Especially for the price. Those Infinities are quite low on price. They really are. Some of them are rear or all-wheel drive. That one you really just have to check into that and see what that car has. But engine and power pretty much remain the same regardless of the powertrain. So, but yeah, they're quick little cars. And again, I think they sound nice. Like, now if you start going crazy with the full straight pipe, everything, then no. Then obviously, then it just sounds terrible. But if you put the right things into it, I believe those cars can actually sound quite good. I'll park over here this time. Yeah, I think those things can sound good. I really do. And so if there's any other cars that I'm missing, you guys can let me know. But I'll try to see if I can. If you guys let me know, I can try to see if I've ever actually looked them up. Because I'm like, obviously it's pretty early in the morning right now, and I'm just kind of just rambling off of what I thought about. But there's definitely other cars that I've never mentioned that with like certain engines, right? And I don't remember every single car. You know, I'm not that crazy. But if you mention it, then I could try to really think of what that car possibly had, like what it has: transmission, engine, maybe some sort of whatever pros and cons that they had. Maybe one has like bad cooling, bad transmission, whatever. You know, I could try to see what those cars had in their tendencies. But hey, you know, that's just my morning rambles right there. I like to just speak of what I think of. I just like to talk about cars. I like all brands. I get interested in seeing what these brands have made and are currently making. See, like, is this cool, right? Like, is it a cool thing? Like, I just I was gonna say, from an engineering standpoint, obviously some cars are just more ass. Especially for me, for my job. That kind of sucks. But I work on Fords and whatnot. So I'm like, those cars are not that bad for me. But yeah, I don't know. I think you can really look into them more in any car. If you can afford to that's my most important thing, is if you're trying to buy certain cars, can you afford to maintain it? That's the one thing. Because buying the car, I think, and I see people say buying this car, that car was the cheapest part. Not necessarily, right? Some cars are cheaper to maintain than others, yes. But if you're talking about specifically performance cars of any cylinder, right, of any cylinder, and I think I'm willing to bet most people will target anywhere between the 3 to 8 cylinder range. Most people do not have that crazy amount where they can just go crazy on a V10 or a V12, right? But when you're looking at those, I'm like, I would say, looking to make sure that you can afford what the maintenance is. And not just regular maintenance, even major maintenance. Like if you have to get certain things changed, some belts, if you don't know how to do it and you go to a shop, some like belts are expensive, right? Those jobs are expensive. Whether it's a timing belt or just literally just your accessory belts and drive belts. Some of them are just a pain from a labor hour time. So I'd say look into that. Look into what you can afford. And say don't get yourself into a bad spot with trying to be fast. And like make sure, like if you buy a fast car or like a relatively sporty car, make sure you can afford to, to fix them up. Because like most of the time, the ones that a lot of people tend to buy are used ones. So make sure whatever needs to be fixed, you can afford to do it. Okay. So you do anything at a I guess a relatively smart rate, but if you got that type of money and you can do anything, I would love to see that, to be honest. That's good for you, and I hope to get there one day too. So, but all right though, I'm gonna head to work. I'm out.